Hey guys, David here, founder of SuperThread, and welcome to the second of my three-part series on how to become a more efficient programmer. So in this second video, I'd like to give you 5 more tips on how to become a more efficient programmer. These tips are aimed at people who are already programming for their career. However, if you are graduating and if you're just coming out of a university with a computer science degree, you may find these tips useful yourself too. I found these tips to have worked for me, therefore they may not work for everyone else, but when I was programming full on for like a year, where I achieved most, where I was most prolific out of all my kind of programming years, I found that these tips work very well for me. Tip number 1, you have to learn how to touch type. Learning how to touch type or type very fast, so I'd say about 60 words per minute upwards, is very important. And the reason being is that if you can't touch type, you're finding it more difficult to get ideas out of your head onto the screen more quickly. And therefore, you're going to be more frustrated, you're going to find it more annoying. So basically learn how to touch type. The number of times I've seen programmers typing with 2 of their fingers, it's just incredible. So there are many sites out there that you can actually go on and learn how to touch type. So I definitely recommend that. Tip number 2 I'd like to give you is find an editor or an IDE and become really good at it. So it doesn't have to be an IDE, it can be just a text editor such as Vim, but there are so many, for example, plugins in Vim, and there are so many kind of key binding you can learn, which will make you much quicker, much more prolific and efficient in it, and make you feel much better while you're programming. So definitely you can choose any editor you like. Once you do, use it and use it seriously. Invest time in learning new tips and tricks inside of your editor. The tip number 3 is write 100% unit and integration test coverage. The reasons are obvious, because if you write code that passes tests, it kind of forces you to write code the right way. So the architecture of your code is much better. So definitely invest time in writing tests. You may find yourself basically spending 50 or 60% of your time writing unit tests, but long term you'll be faster. The tip number 4 is be very careful about what computer science books you read. So do your research thoroughly, because I found that in my career, most of the books which I read, they're more or less a liability. They tell you how to do things the wrong way. So be very careful about what kind of books you pick. There's one safe book I'd like to recommend. It's Martin Fowler's Refactoring, and currently the 2nd edition is out, which is written in JavaScript. The 1st edition was written in Java, but it makes no difference. Whatever language you're actually programming in, it's the ideas that you get from that book that count. And the tip number 5 is that you must make sure you pace yourself. As a programmer, I don't think you can program as a human being even more than 6 hours a day of conscious, focused work. Because if you do more than that, you'll find that later on you're burnt out, and long term is the wrong thing to do. So be very careful about not overdoing it. So I would say maybe 12 sessions times 30 minutes of conscious, focused work, but no more than that per day of programming. You can do other stuff, but not programming, because if you actually end up doing more than that, you're going to be burnt out. And also, if you find yourself that you are in the flow, we have this kind of idea as programmers of being in the flow. You can see everything in slow motion. You still actually need to make sure that you take your break every 30 minutes, because if you just end up kind of going on forever, lose track of time, it's going to hurt you down the line. So that brings this second video in this 3-part series to an end, and I hope to see you guys in our next video, where we're going to conclude this 3-part series on how to become a more efficient programmer.